So I was on his show, Lee Rayburn's show, talking about this, and after the show he said, "You've got to listen to something we just heard from a whistleblower who told him he was a member of this organization, Infragard, that I'd never heard of, Amy." And it's been kind of hidden in plain sight there, because you can go find out about it at www.infragard.net. You need the WWs for some reason. Anyway, so I finally got around to talking to this whistleblower because I was a little skeptical. You know, I've been an editor for 28 years, so I try to be skeptical about just about everything. And this idea that they would have permission to shoot to kill in times of an emergency, that struck me as a little bit out there. And yet I talked to him. I took careful notes. He described a meeting at a place where Homeland Security and the FBI were giving a talk to maybe 30 people. I took the information back. I called around to where the meeting was held. I talked to other Infragard members who confirmed that that meeting actually had taken place and that there were FBI agents there and a Homeland Security agent there. And so I was beginning to believe what this guy said, and I do believe what he said because he has no motive to actually tell me this. He was a member of Infragard. He showed me his little Infragard card with his email address on it and with the emergency numbers of Homeland Security and FBI on the back in case of emergencies. And so I tried to find other people and did manage to find other Infragard members who would talk to me about this emergency preparedness exercises that the FBI and Homeland Security has been conducting with these 23,000 business people around the country. And one other member of Infragard confirmed to me that she had actually been at meetings and participated in meetings where the discussion of lethal force came up as far as what business people are entitled to do in times of an emergency to protect their little aspect of the infrastructure.
But just to clarify, Matt Rothschild, who exactly is empowered to shoot to kill if martial law were declared? The business leaders themselves?
The business leaders themselves were told, at least in this one meeting, that if there is martial law declared or if there's a time of an emergency, that members of Infragard would have permission to protect, you know, whether it's the local utility or, you know, their computers or the financial sector, whatever aspect of the infrastructure they're involved with, they'd have permission to shoot to kill, to use lethal force to protect their aspect of the infrastructure, and they wouldn't be able to be prosecuted, they were told.
The president and his lawyers have successfully established a legal claim for the war on terror that the whole world is a battlefield. And so the whole world, you can call someone an enemy combatant and detain them, disappear them, even torture them. If the whole world is a battlefield and there are troops on the ground in America, how is America not a battlefield legally? And if the whole world is a battlefield and there are troops on the ground in America, how does military law not supersede civilian law? And closing the circle finally, when Brad Sherman says we've been threatened with martial law, before the 1st Brigade was deployed, that would have been an empty threat because National Guard responds to the governors, and we managed to stop Blackwater by enough people screaming and yelling to keep them from being deployed as the president's army. The president now has an army. The president now has an army. What is the purpose of having 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers who will do your bidding or else face serious repercussions? To make good, among other things, to make it serious, to be able to threaten our Congress with martial law if they don't do as he says. And what I want to tell you is, if Congress thinks, if this is true, and if Congress thinks they can stop a threat of martial law by caving, you know, they have got to look at history, because the pattern is, once you yield, this is exactly like Mussolini. Mussolini did exactly this in 1920 with Parliament. Once you yield to the first threat, instead of arresting the leader who has staged a coup, you see more and more and more serious incursions.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
And he also had dealings with Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden.
We cannot wait for the final proof.
He also had dealings with Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden.
The smoking gun.
He also had dealings with Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden.
It could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
Murdered Osama bin Laden.
The smoking gun.
Murdered Osama bin Laden.
The smoking gun.
Bin Laden. Bin Laden.
We cannot wait for the final proof.
And he also had dealings with Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden.